If you are interested in building your own show file and learning from other show files, this is definitely the video for you. This week we're going to talk to Michael Green from New Zealand, and he built his own show file and he actually made it available for download as well. So you can click the link in the description below, download your own copy and try to follow along as he builds his show file, and there's so much to learn from it because he's going to explain all his macros, all his automation, everything he does to set up his show file with a new lighting system if you arrive at a new venue and you have to incorporate this system into your show file. There's chapter markers below so you can skip to the part that interests you the most. But there's definitely a lot to learn from this video. This video is part 1 of 2. I'm going to release the other one tomorrow, part 2 of this video, where we basically in this video do all the setup, everything, building on the groups, importing the MVR file, all that stuff, working with multi-instance fixtures and all this stuff in this video. And tomorrow, the next video is using the show file. When you have incorporated everything, how does the show file work? How does the macro reference each other? How can you actually do a show on it? So welcome to this week's video. I hope you're going to enjoy it, and let's just welcome Michael right away. Welcome, Michael Green from Auckland in New Zealand. And just before we start, I think I'm just going to say to our viewers that you will hear me constantly interrupting you because there is quite a bit delay between us. You are in New Zealand, which is actually almost precisely on the other side of the world from where I'm sitting now. So it's not because I am really, really rude. I will be interrupting you all the time for the viewers, and that is simply because of the delay in time. But welcome to the Event Lighting channel.
Awesome. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Nice. It's a kind of a funny story with you because I did this interview with Sean Baldwin a week ago, and you commented on one of the videos I posted somewhere that it was nice to see your show file out there. So of course I seized the opportunity to contact you and say, don't you want to join me?
Yeah, no, it was real weird. I just put it up just to kind of have it in the background. I was doing some stuff because it's always interesting to listen and hear things. I can look at it quickly. And then I just heard my name and was like, what? Huh? I'm home alone. And then, just ended up pausing it, grabbing a drink and sitting down and watching the whole video. So it was really cool. And I had known that some people in the States and some people in Europe had kind of reached out saying they've looked at it and they've played with it, but hadn't kind of realized who else had, I haven't really seen anything from it, just heard texts and messages. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. So it was fun. So the backstory to this is that your show file is actually available on, I think, GitHub, where people can download it and check it out.
Yeah, it's me who's had so much help from the community, whether it's from your videos or on forums, Facebook, Reddit. Kind of, if I had questions, they've answered them and they've kind of helped me with this. And so I was like, well, that's kind of my way of giving it back, going, well, everyone's helped me with this, so let's see if I can help people with ideas that I've come up with. So
that's a really good idea. So it's of course it's a different show file than Sean's because as always these show files you can do something, you can draw inspiration from someone and maybe have a show file from someone and then make it your own. So I'm guessing we're going to see something which is similar but also different.
Yeah, there's some, I watched that video pretty intensely, so there's certainly going to be similarities. Workflow is always going to be very personal. There's no LD I've ever seen come through any of the venues I've worked at that has had the same workflow as me, and I've not had the same as them. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the nature of it. So there'll be some things that people will see like, oh, I recognize that. And there'll be bits that might be new to them. But also my inspiration has come through from MA2. And so videos from like Christian Jackson, plugins from Gaffo Designs, and just files that I've been lucky enough to have access to over the years of how people do things. And I've kind of pulled all those bits and things that I like and hopefully built the file that resembles that. So yeah.
Yeah. And later we're going to go through your file, and my understanding is we're going to like start over with your like a template file and try to import an MVR into it, and you're going to show us the entire workflow of building it up as you would on the first day of a venue.
Yeah, that's the plan, and fingers crossed it works. It may not, but hopefully I can fix it. And you
You
can
never know.
maybe see my thing for fixing something I find, because this file is like, I'll never say it's perfect. It's never going to be a perfect file. There's things that I sometimes have to do on a show day to make something work because of different things, and so it is a work in progress constantly. But
Yeah.
it'd be cool. Should be good.
Well, maybe just a little bit about yourself. You sent me some pictures. We can just have a look at and see some of the things you started with doing. I'm guessing this is one of the older photos.
This is probably one of the first photos of a lighting rig I had the opportunity to design. It was the first company that hired me in New Zealand, and basically it was a gig that was every Saturday during summer and a little bit during winter as well at a theme park called Night Rides, Rainbow's End, and the event was called Night Rides. And the brief was, if it was in the workshop and I could fit it in the back of a van, I could take it. Oh, and I could set it up in the time frame. So it gave me the ability to play with some quite advanced kit for someone who was actually quite new to the industry. Well, new to working in the industry. I grew up in the industry through family things, but it was a way for me to play with things that I wouldn't probably not get a chance to normally touch for a few years, and try out some different designs with different types of lights and see what I liked and didn't like and stuff.
Of course.
And I still don't know what I don't like, so we'll see.
Yeah, fair enough. So there's a lot of images here of, and now we are in MA3 world.
So this is MA3. So this is actually much more recent. This is from my last job. I was full time for 2 years at the Auckland Council in Auckland, New Zealand. And so we looked after a number of venues, doing a mixture of like corporate, orchestra, theatre, comedy, bands. So this is just a award show that I did some lighting for. This is a thing called ShowQuest, which is like a national youth competition for performance, so dance and drama and music. And
that's the good old MA2 days then.
That's good old MA2, and it still is MA2, unfortunately. It's just it's a little struggle in New Zealand sometimes to get enough consoles that we need for certain gigs, but MA2 is still more than powerful for that, so it's great. This is a band gig at the local theatre. So this is a guy called Troy Kingy, another simple one where it's just kind of a brief, here's some lighting. And the rest of the photos are a place called the Great Hall, which is Auckland Town Hall. Just a variety of gigs. Most of my gigs were actually in the Great Hall, with a variety of bands and orchestras and conference shows. And most of the photos I take of my gigs are afterwards. And this is Town Hall, just doing some patterns on the roof and being allowed to kind of play with toys. Once again, kind of pull stuff out of the stable and make it work. Oh, another Troy Kingy one thing. So
yeah, that's cool.
A lot of Gobos. I like Gobos. Gobos are something I use a lot.
So do I. I do like Gobos. Some people don't. Some people just never use them, but I tend to like it just for the things I do anyway.
Yeah, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it's all good. That's fine.
Yeah. So should we maybe start up and have a look at your show file, and of course, if there's anything we will mention during this video here, if there's like links to GitHub or whatever, we can just post all these links below. I know you have your own little YouTube channel as well, where you kind of explain some of the stuff around the show file. That could also be available, linked down below when we get into it.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. That's easy peasy. I'd love to have people reach out as well. Anyone who has any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. So it's cool.
Really good.
Sweet as.
Really good.
Right, I'll jump on into software. Cool. So this is kind of how I try to leave the file every time I want to reopen it. So generally, before the gig, I'll make sure I've cleared out everything, or if it's the current version of the file and I haven't made any changes in the last few gigs, I'll just already have a template file that's laid out like this, ready to go.
So this is just like an empty file.
this is an empty file. There's nothing patched. It has some fixtures in there that are I've only just started doing, actually, since listening to Sean's one, actually, keeping keeping fixtures that I've used in a separate stage, so that I still retain some specific bits of data that I want. Yeah, so it's an empty file. It depends if I've made changes on a gig and updated some kind of macro in the back end. I'll maybe keep the original file and just change fixtures out. But by and large, it's always an empty file that I start with ahead of each show that I go into. And depending on the gig, I'll either be given a MVR, so I can import the fixtures in and then update and replace groups as I need to, or I will just receive a patch list and a plan and kind of put the fixtures in and then put the 3D information in. But we'll get to that shortly about that. So yeah, the other thing I've been doing only recently, actually since Sean's video, I've kind of decided I was going to do it. But someone else mentioned is keeping my old fixtures in a separate stage. So I actually have some of that preset information saved and stored. So I'm not always recreating stuff every time. But this is a pretty empty file at this stage. There's not much in here that we will see. Cool.
Definitely.
So kind of just to start with a patch. So just into the patch, and I'm in the wrong stage. There we go. So the file always has these 11 groups. Don't have to use all 11 groups. The file is only built around the first 8. So in terms of how it's referencing things, these are just for extra things. If I suddenly, someone goes, oh, there's a lamp over the back there, or some like door light you need to keep on, I can just patch it into these other groups and just have something to just isolate it out and store it. But these first 8 groups are the ones that I work with the most. And then I'm just importing fixtures into the groups themselves. So if I go import MVR, and we try this one here, see how this goes. So this is importing a MVR from the last WOMED NZ. So it was March 14th, 15th, 16th, I believe. So it's just fixtures that I've it's just a file that I had already ready there. And I go through and pick what things I want to keep. So I normally keep from my file my universal, my dummies, and obviously anything that is in my existing fixture types. And then I'll go through and just double check the list for everything else that's coming in, often trying to not bring in a lot of set pieces because I find it just bogs down 3D, and I don't really need set pieces to see the lighting. I can imagine what it's going to look like with any stage or set piece around it.
Yeah, is there any reason why you import everything into your first group, like you are doing now, or would you import it somewhere else and then cut and paste it into the correct groups?
For me, I'm still kind of learning MVR. I don't have a way myself to export or import MVR out of a 3D, like Vectorworks or anything like that. I'm not there yet with that. So it's something I'm still learning. So the process for me will change. It's just this is my current process. And I do notice I'm actually missing some fixtures. So what I will do is I will keep these ones. I will keep because these are actually going to be important for this. This one, that's okay. Cool. Only because this was exported from here originally.
Okay.
It'll be fine. Cool. So it's importing MVR. Because this was an export from my previous file, it will actually have all the groups for me. So it's going to put them into those groups.
Okay.
Yeah. So because I had exported it out of my previous show file and brought it back in, it kind of already had my grouping fixtures and everything in there. So I've had to do this a few times when I'm moving between show file versions. That this has done it. I'm not an expert on this part of it. Sorry.
No, but it seems like a good idea, actually.
Yeah, and so it's brought in all my fixtures. They're all there, and the biggest one for me is making sure my 3D information is there, which I can see it is. Although I do see that my heights are missing and my upstage, downstage position. So I'll just need to go through and update that, but I'll do that shortly. So yeah,
we
so
can see your
have my
3D. I
patch.
just opened your 3D right now on the small window here, and you can see it's completely empty.
Yeah, so in the moment it will populate once I exit patch because it hasn't done the update yet. But yeah, normally just go through and also make sure that, you know, my patch is correct, make sure the fixtures come through. Big one is making sure that your fixture types have come through. Because if the MVR you're given doesn't have a GDTF fixture there, it's just like a Vectorworks output with a dummy fixture, you won't have any control. So you need to make sure and go through that you are actually talking to the fixture you're supposed to.
Yeah.
So this one will have brought through fine because all the fixtures I used, I believe, GDTF files. So it's all come through correctly. Yeah, so from here, I just, you know, exit my patch, save and exit. And at this point, you should now see over in the 3D, all my fixtures have now appeared, all hanging out substage. And my next step is going back into the live patch this time. And within live patch, it just means that with my 3D window up, and I would normally I would be doing this on the console. So I'd have my screen 2, display 2 would be my 3D.
Yeah.
And just bring this up a little bit so I can see it. There we go. And because I'm in live patch, then anything I do here will happen live. So I can go my front profiles, and I do most of the like Z and Y positioning. I do on the grouping profile, not on the fixtures themselves. So then I can do quick updates if I need to. If I go, oh, actually that, you know, front truss isn't 10 meters in there. There you go. So it's 10 meters up, and I'm going to say it's minus 3 meters down from the downstage edge. My mid-profile backs, they are going to be, just double check what the spacing I have on those is, 3 meters. So let's say that starts, let's go, say 2 meters up from the downstage edge, and we're going to say it's a 9 meter height. The reason it's come across in as 2 rows is because of how I've just done the position information here. So I've made sure I've grabbed my first 6, -5 to 5, and then done my bit of Y and a little bit of Z manipulation just to get some of that stagger going on. But it's, yeah, happening in there. And then my floor fixtures, they were, I put 2 meters in there. And one thing to like really important with this is you don't need this information to be 100% accurate. You don't need like the fixtures to be 1-to-1. Unless you need that for because you're trying to do follow stuff or whatever with a 3D. But the best part is this is just getting it rough. Get it to at least resemble kind of how the rig looks in terms of fixture spacing and order, because that's going to make your life so much easier when you're making groups.
Definitely.
I can't go on enough about that. Group making without this is not pleasant.
Nope.
So yeah,
and this is one of the things I think you need to get used to coming from any other console or coming from MA2, is that suddenly your 3D really matters because it can help you. You don't need to do it, but it can help you in so many different ways.
Yeah, and it's something like when I'm working with people or helping train some people that are new to the companies I'm working in, or just I've had people come through. Like I've been a system tech, and people have come through on 3, and they've been doing some stuff, and I will never just straight up go, oh, you should do it this way. I would always go like, hey, just so you know, I help train some people. If you need a hand, I'm happy to answer questions or offer advice. And if they go, that's great, then I will. If they go, nah, I'm good, then it's But this is one of the big things I tell people. This is one of the big things I tell people when I'm talking to them and helping train them is this is going to be a lifesaver for everything you do. If you don't do this, you're gonna regret it. That's good. Sidelight. Yeah, let's just make you go. Sure. You'll notice on the 3D, the side light's actually stacked out on an angle. That's not how it was in real life, but I do that because as part of some of the selection stuff I do later on. It just makes my life easier for selecting those fixtures. This, if anyone is interested in that, so I'll set that to its height. And yeah, so that was obviously a lot faster because I already had my X information in there, and I kind of knew the heights. It could take a bit longer for some people.
But also if you were to import the entire thing as an MVR and everything was set up correctly, you don't need to do all the heights and X, Y, and Z adjustments because it will come in correctly.
Yeah, and what's likely to happen is when I exported that MVR out of my previous file, I probably had already cleared those Y and Z heights from the groups, and so that's why I didn't bring it through. It would be my guess, because I have had it come through before, where it's just kind of gone, oh, that's my rig, great, I can just jump straight into doing stuff. So yeah, that's the patch. There'll be times you're definitely diving into this more. There's always things you have to come in. You need to come in and do inverts on pan and tilt, or grabbing some fixtures. You need to come in and go to the fixture types and make changes. So patches are still so useful even long after you've actually put your fixtures in your profile.
Very true.
Yeah. So once the 3D is kind of in a rough shape of this is how it's going to be, one of the first things I would often do is just quickly go through my groups and at least make sure, I'm just going to turn shortcuts on for this, at least make sure that I have control of the lights. So it could be as simple as having my highlight turned on. Oh, it's because that's on. Highlight turned on. Let's just make that a bit darker again because it's going to be hard to see. So I'm just going to do a little bit of technical wizardry over on the 3D.
That's fine.
Just bring the ambient down. Point light down a bit. Yeah, cool. So, put that again.
And you get some smoke going there as well, so that's very nice.
Yeah, I'm just playing with it. We'll see how that goes for the FPS. It may kill it, but we'll try it out for as long as we can. And I'll do the same on this one just for now. But so go through and check your rig. There's no point going through and doing all these group making stuff if you don't know your whole rig works.
No.
So things as simple as highlighting it, nexting through them. If I'm on a console, I'll often next and then tilt out all my fixtures so I can at least see that they're tilting out in order as well and there's no random things happening. And the way I'm doing it on this file for how I've set it up is these 8 groups here, or actually 9 groups, but that one's a spare. These 8 groups here relate back to the groups in patch. So I can click this, and that's the fixture ID for that group. And if I hit the down key on the console or my keyboard when I have shortcuts, it now selects those fixtures that are in that group, and I can now quickly interact with them. So yeah, just going through, making sure it's all there. And
maybe for the viewers, you can see there is a delay between when you're actually doing something in your console and when the 3D reacts. And I'm guessing that is because we are streaming halfway around the world on 3 different streams or video links right now. So there might be a slight delay in something.
I imagine there's a few different routes it's trying to take to get to Denmark. Yeah. Unfortunately, we weren't able to dig a tunnel all the way through. So that's okay. So yeah, these ones aren't going to highlight because interesting. Wonder why they're not going to highlight. There'll be something funky with how their profile's set up that I'll get into later. And there'll be something we'll discover together, which will be lots of fun.
It'll be interesting.
Probably haven't enabled. Yeah. I just haven't enabled highlight on them for some reason. So no worries.
GridStore highlight, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Cool. So that's the first thing is rig check, super important.
Yeah.
Ideally, if I've come into a thing, obviously the rig itself has been checked ahead of time. This is just me making sure my file's talking happily. Yeah. And so then I move on to. I'm just going to get this window that's not up yet back to there, and I'm going to go to my start show and back to my content update. because this is
Yeah.
where a few things need to happen at the very start. So I don't know why I put these in this order. That makes no sense. But anyway, you can click on the Start Show manual. It's the same one that Start Show came with. I have modified a little bit, so it will run you through all the stuff we've just done if you need help. But the next step is run the Create Basic Macros group. And so it kind of explains what everything's doing. And there's a few things that I'll show you that have changed in here, but that's cool. So you click OK, and we run Create Basic Groups. Open it first, kind of explain what it's doing, and then we'll see it run.
Yes.
So in this macro here, it's doing a few things, but it's basically line 1 is grabbing that group 1, which is this guy just here, profile front. And it is once it's in the programmer, it's hitting down on the keys. That's now doing my linear selection from that group, and it's storing it into my Start Show group 1 linear. It is also at the same time storing that same linear selection into another group that I need for later on. And I'll explain what that's for, but it's to do with instancing stuff, because that makes my mind hurt every time I have to look at it. And then it basically just works down the list. So group 1, group 2, group 3, group 8. And then once it's done that, it goes, cool, it's clearing all every time and merging the information, which probably should be an overwrite, really, but I'll fix that another time. Clears everything at the end of the thing, and now we're going into, cool, we now have these linear groups. Let's make it do some more work for us to speed up our life and do our odd and even groups. And so it's just going through and doing even, odd, even, all the way down to group 8. It can do the thirds groups as well if you set it up with the matrix. How matrix does the third groups and how I like to do groups, like my groups of 3 for the loss engine, is different. I think based on what I can see. So I've not done that in here because I do another method for getting those specific groups made. But that's the macro. So yeah, let's run that now. So you'll see it do a few things if you're watching through here as it starts to fill out some information. You can see all the linear groups are being generated.
Very nice.
You can't see on the other screen, but it's also filling in the linear position. But if I switch here, you should actually see what it's doing on the selection grid.
Yeah, and that's that macro running and just pre-populating everything.
Yeah, so it's helping you fill out, not a small amount of groups. It's about half the groups I need to make. Just been done from that macro. To be fair,
one
to
question.
get most of
One
done,
question is now I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. One question is when you do the matrix, are they symmetrical or asymmetrical? Your odd and even groups, will they be correct every time?
No. This is something where I am still learning matrix. So I would still class myself as like an intermediate MA3 like programmer and user. I'm still on a very long path of learning about things that I hopefully will learn at some point. So what will happen, and it's a good point you bring up, is, so for example, my on the correct screen, so my so you're going to see me look over here because my screen 2 is here, but my camera's here. My mid and back truss profiles. If I go to my even group and we actually look at the 3D, although it seems to have done it. When I last did this, it didn't. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, but it's like 3D. a basic math thing it's doing with the matrix, I guess. So it will not work every time, depending on how your rig is.
It will not work every
out.
time. It'll work on your number of fixtures, because if you've got even and odd fixture, like if you've got an odd number of fixtures, and say truss 1 is 1 to 4, but then no, that would work in that scenario.
Yeah, but if you have a truss in a fixture in center on one truss, then you will have a problem, right?
Yeah. it's interesting because I had an issue to do with odd and even stuff on this file with those fixtures when I was on the gig, and I just didn't bother fixing it because I'm the only one that really just going to notice it on a festival where 80% of the gigs were at daylight, so the lights were just making pretty pictures during the day. That's really interesting because that was inverted on the back row.
Yeah.
The last time I ran the macro, so maybe I fixed it at some point.
The problem is you don't know how.
No, and that's one of the joys of MA3 sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, it's not doing anymore. Okay, cool. I wish I knew why it's not doing anymore, but we'll find that out. Maybe it's on the. No, those are done it as well. How? Well, those aren't going to work because they're not highlighting for some reason. That's fine. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But because even that's done it right, which is okay. I'm not gonna argue with it because it's working perfectly right now. So yeah, it works great every time. But no, things aren't going to work great every time, and there'll be things you might need to go and update groups just to make it look a little bit better. You might decide that these fixtures actually need to be in a different group or a different odd even.
Yeah.
So once I get through my linear, evens, odds, and I've done the linear positions, it's also groups. That's half done. I now need to kind of do the rest, and this is where the 3D is super important. Because if the 3D is not correct, it's going to make this whole process a lot slower. Because to do all your grid selection grid is, for the majority of it, is by far the easiest way of doing it. So let's switch back to the screen here, and we'll do it on here because I can do it on one screen. I have the ability. So if we make it go a little bit brighter again, and this screen I've set up specifically for this. I use it for my 3D view. I don't change it, but I have put my worlds across the bottom here because this is how I do this I think faster for me.
Yeah. Is this also stored in your macro, your worlds?
No. So these worlds are literally just looking at the grouping fixture, and because of that, it pulls through the sub fixtures.
Okay.
Which is quite neat. Is it supposed to do that?
That is quite good. So they will actually update themselves depending on what you put into your groups, into your grouping fixture.
Yeah. For this part of it, yes, there are some things like sub instances of fixtures. Things get a little funky, but I often sub instance stuff I don't do through 3D. I do it through layout views, especially when I'm doing like pixel things of LED or XIPs like we have in here. So they'll see that shortly. But yeah, so these are just it's really helpful. The fixture is a white, but anyway. I do that one. That might help make it stand out a little bit better. You can see the fixtures, but you can see the fixtures are kind of tracking through with those groups. Even the blinders. So I normally start at group 1 here, and the first thing I do is a perspective selection. So making sure I'm doing that diagonal selection. And that brings up in my selection grid my selection here. And you might need to tweak these. Like this perspective selection from the 3D view isn't always, I find, like accurate. There's sometimes this gap here is actually bigger than this gap. I don't worry about it for now. I often go back and fix it later. It's not, for me, as important to get that figured out right now.
No, it's always a perspective problem. I find if you use the 2D views, you will often get a better result, and make sure you zoom in so you can see everything. That will most of the time give you the correct result.
Yeah, so we can try that here. Let me go. I should have saved that view. So let's go. So if I zoom in here, we've got my fixtures, and let's do my perspective selection. That's hey, thanks for teaching me something new. There we go. That looks like it's brought through spacing. Oh, the spacing's still a bit big on that one, but that's fine. I mean, I could go here now and just drag it in one, and now we've got it spaced about right. But yeah, from there,
not that it would matter in reality that you have one extra space there at all.
the like if you're being real nitpicky, when you're running
Yeah,
some of the effects that I have set up through the grid selection, that fixture might turn on half a
yeah,
half second after another fixture, and if it's a fast enough fit, you might see it.
yeah.
Most of the time, I don't fix this. Those gaps I'm not worried about. Across a 3-day festival, when I've got time, I will fix it. But for a
Yeah.
one-off show, often that's the last thing on my thoughts. So once I have the selection for that one, I'm using shortcuts on my keyboard. So S for store, and storing that into Start Show Group Run Grid. And I'm also at this point going to store it into Start Show Group Run Grid position. I'll explain why in a little bit, but
Okay.
that's once again, it's to do with instancing and multi-fixture instancing and making that work with recipes. Not a good time for my brain. I'm going to, just for now, for this example, store this as a new view, just so I can quickly jump to it. Cool. So you could clear the programmer, but because you're jumping worlds, it'll do it for you. So I normally don't bother clearing programmer between those. I just jump to my next world, and once again, perspective selection into my presets, storing. And you can kind of get a flow with this after a while. It becomes
Yeah.
pretty quick of storing this information. You get in a rhythm.
Yeah, and I actually do the same in my show file. I separate it into worlds. I have a macro that stores my worlds, and then it is super fast to do these things. And I don't even bother having odds and evens and all that stuff on macros. I just do them by hand.
Yeah, and that's what honestly, like when I wrote that macro, it was on the MA users Discord. Someone who just mentioned they were making a macro for it, and I was like, that's kind of cool. I might try and make my own. And so that's kind of how it came about. It was just I had some time one day and I was like, hey, that sounds like a cool idea. I want to make my own.
Yeah.
Do I need it? Not really. The amount of time it took to write it, it saves me some time, but
Yeah, but it makes you better as a programmer and as someone using this console, and also making you better at helping others who might face different problems where this could be the solution.
yeah, totally. Yeah, for sure. That's done something I haven't seen it do before. Interesting. Let's just do that selection again. Perspective, top down. There we go. That was weird. I must have not done a perspective selection. And so I was saying before how I'd offset in 3D, those fixtures have been offset out, even though they're actually vertically stacked on a piece of pipe. It's only for this reason. It means that when I run some effects through them, I can get a little bit of change by having the
Otherwise, they would
group
just be doing the same thing.
be doing the same thing. And something I have thought about is adding in the Z phase to my effect stuff, but it's just another complication that people will see later on that is really not needed when you can do something simple like this with your group selection. And the last one, my blinders. Everyone loves some good blinders. I don't always put them into these specific groups. Sometimes I'll put them in this. So this group 9 for me is kind of it's not used in many recipes. It's just an extra thing for me if I need to put some fixture in and I want to be able to quickly grab that group and store it into it, like have it in a recipe. So it's just a little spare thing that I have there.
Like a Joker group.
Kind of, yeah, I guess. It's just it did start with me initially going, oh, I want more groups, and then kind of realizing that the amount of faders I'm starting to use is actually a bit ridiculous. So I don't need more groups on faders. But it gives me the ability to do some stuff, and I can talk it through later as well with the way it does things.
Okay.
So that's now my grid selection done, and then depending on the show I'm doing, I like I like parts of the loss engine, but I don't find enough. Like if it's a gig that I'm doing, like a 1-day gig, and it's kind of fast, I find I don't use it very much. So I often don't do my thirds groups for it. I will for this example because it is good habit to have them in there. But for me, the process would just go back through and select how you're going to do it. So if, my preference for thirds is actually to break the rig into thirds. So a left third, a middle third, and a right third. If you do it through GrandMA3, it'll grab every third fixture, or it's like it'll grab the first fixture, then the fourth fixture, then the seventh
Yeah, you could.
fixture.
I
How does
guess you
math
could
work?
probably set the matrix to do it in blocks of 3. That should do the same thing, I guess.
Well, it would depend though, because if your rig isn't multiples of 3,
Yeah. Then you have a
then
problem.
it won't. So in my brain, I'm coming up with an idea. And I'm trying to learn Lua on the background when I have time to hopefully try and write a plugin that maybe will do this for me. But ultimately, as we were saying, it's actually not that hard to do just by doing. And if I'm normally working across 2 screens, I'm just doing on one screen for this example, but normally I'd be working, left screen would have 3D, right screen would have my groups, and I'm just selecting, storing, and it's quick enough. So here I'm just going to go down and store into my thirds. I might just do this example without switching back and forward, just because it'll be fast to get through this section.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
I'll finish these ones off just because we're here. So grab these ones, and I'm not overly worried about whether it's a perspective. Like if it's got spacing or no spacing, it doesn't matter, because none of the stuff the loss engine does really uses that bit of the selection grid by and large. So I don't pay the greatest amount of attention to how I select these, just as long as I've got my third selection in there. But mileage may vary. I'm not saying that's the right way. That's just my method. So yeah, let's go coming in here, grabbing these. And this happens from time to time. So if we go in here and we look at the selection grid, based on how I've done my selection, like, left to right first, then top to bottom, or vice versa, like I said, I know it doesn't matter, but there is a little bit of me that thinks it matters. And so here I will actually do a little rotate, and then I flip. So my fixtures are 201, 202, and then 207. It actually doesn't matter.
No.
That's just, for whatever reason, my brain decided that does matter. So we'll go with it. So if I do it this way, it should through. No. I don't want. I'm not going diagonal, I promise you. There we go. Yeah, because even if I do, left to right, so it should have done left to right, so 203, 204. Just do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and hey, there, presto. Right, I'm going to switch to my left and right screen just for this one, and no, they're not going to see me on my 3D, but it's just going to be a little bit faster for this.
That's fine.
This part of it. You see, I know I don't need to care, but sometimes I do, and I don't know why.
No.
Yeah, see that there? It'll be fine. Fine. And yeah, this is significantly quicker if you're on a console.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But
it's good practice also showing that this is how you can do it, and this is actually, it doesn't necessarily have to take that long.
No, totally. Oh yeah, that's what I was doing. And it's a thing, like it's one of those things that will I don't know if this is a phrase that will make sense to everyone, but it'll stitch you up. So at a certain point, you'll be like mid-show, and you'll have this thing of like, oh yeah, 6 shows ago I did this really cool thing where I did this like flash on the loss engine, and then did a strobe, and you go to do it, and then you've like, I haven't programmed my thirds groups. I don't actually have that half of what looked really cool. So
yeah, exactly.
It's one of those battles. You pick and choose the battle. Or the pick and choose how you use your time doing this.
Definitely.
Because if I've only got a few minutes, not a few minutes, but an hour to get a file ready for a show, I'm not going to go through and do this, because I'm not going to. There's other things I need to look at and check.
Well, that also speaks on the versatility of a show file. If you build it correctly, you can choose on one day not to do something, and that's still fine.
Yeah, and like this file is because I've had a few people, like a few festivals I've been on, where people have come in that I've been working with, like we've been both doing lighting on the festival, because it's such a big day, you can't do the entire 12 hours together. And there's often some of them that it's a smaller stage, we've only got one console, so we're not able to swap files between things. So I've just been like, well, let's use my file, I've kind of got it. And one of the comments I get, and it's totally reasonable, is there's a lot. This file can do a lot. It can do too much, if I'm honest. And you can get very bogged down in like, oh, how do I do this, and like doing some real minute little things that may not actually be noticed by the audience, but you'll notice it, and that's sometimes just as important. Making sure that you're noticing it. But yeah, this file has a lot. There's many things in here that are not needed, but I just built because I like the idea of having it if I want it.
Yeah.
So that was the last thirds group done, and so I can now go back to my all groups. On my all world, on my 3D, I'll just show you. Sorry. So I was in group 8, and I've just gone back and clicked all world, and now my 3D's back.
Yeah.
The next step for me, and it's something that's just actually been built while I was at WOMAD, is I've kind of the bump stuff that Sean was talking about is still there that I have set up, which is just like a single bump per group type, and you can kind of modify it with the layout view. But I've also added in some more that are kind of a little bit more overarching bumps, which work better in my brain for how I want some stuff to look. And so I've actually made a view for it called my bumps view. And it's going to be a mixture of some more 3D selection stuff. And there'll be things to tweak in here because we're going to get into instancing, and that's the next step actually after this as well, is doing like instancing stuff. You know what? Let's do the fixture instances first, because that'll make this a bit easier. So.
And this is also something people struggle with everywhere, and so do I sometimes, with working with instances and keeping things strict or normal in recipes, and kind of figuring out you could save a dimmer value as default on a fixture, just to help you out when you're working with multi-instance fixtures. There's so many different ways you can do it, and sometimes you will just not find the answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I blame my grey hair or my baldness, which one on which part is to instance fixtures, but what instance fixtures is a cause for one of those two things, if not both. And so it's like it's still something that I can spend hours on if I need to, and that's kind of that's where I think you need to pick and choose, unless you're obviously coming into a festival where they've decided to go with pixel mode, which often they don't because it's just too much to deal with in a festival situation. I got a little bit cheeky on the last one I did because I kind of knew that I was going to be doing about 80% of the acts. I ended up doing about 99% of the acts lighting for them. And there will be like 1 or 2 LDs that come in across the 3 days. And so I kind of spec'd the rig for me based off their riders that they had sent through, kind of going, we can do this, we can't do this. But I did have to fix some pixel mode, which is a little bit cheeky for a festival, to be fair. So yeah, on a festival thing, you probably wouldn't have to worry about this because you just put it in the most robust mode you can. That's kind of versatile for everyone. But here we are. It was what I had. So let's spend some time looking at instances because we all need more practice in it. I will say one of the real big things that I found with instance fixtures is making sure you get your fixture type profile set up correctly. Are we still there? Something dropped out, I think. Oh, no. Cool. So no, I said like a weird click. Is making sure that your fixture type is set up correctly. And this could take a few goes. If it's not set up correctly, it'll have some weird things. And I don't think my way is the correct way, but once again, it works for me. So I'll quickly just show that. There's a few little sidetracks here. I find that happens all the time with MA3 because there's so many ways of doing things. But if you come into your patch, and you can do it in live patch for most of this because you're not changing too heavy of information. If you're doing some like pretty drastic changes, you should do it in the normal patch. But live patch means you don't have to do the save and exit and save information. It just kind of happens live, which is good when you're trying to test things. But if I bring up, this would be a good test for it actually. If I bring up my faders right now for my group 4, which is my front wash, they are working, which is a good sign. It means some things are being pulled through correctly due to strict/normal selection. But that's not always the case. If you've got normal selection or strict selection, it may not actually work because the pixels are driven at 0 and you've got something at 100. It's just the nature of it. So I would often go in here to my fixture type and edit it. DMX modes, find the one you're using. So in this moment, we're using extended. and go through here, and this can take a bit of trial and error. But what I've set up for this particular profile, which is probably why it's working ahead of time because it's not a new file, is by default the beams dimmer would be at 0, and the beams being the base fixture,
Yeah.
the main instance, and the red, green, blue are better at 255 at max. And if you come all the way down to like your auras dimmer and your auras color and your pixels dimmer and your pixel RGB, all this will be inverted. So that would be at 255, those would be at 0. That would be at 255, those would be at 0. And so that would mean that fixture would output still, it would work correctly, but it means getting things like pixel, having pixel effects happening based on my effects engine, or color gradients, colors moving across the fixture, but you actually have, during a daytime show, seeing the slow wipes going across the pixels is a harder process to do with recipes for me, that I find by changing these in the way I have, it gives me the control of the things I need, like the pixels, like the auras.
And this is also kind of just experience in what works for you, I guess.
Totally. And it's just experience from playing with instance fixtures. Like, I was lucky enough at the council that I was at, we had, a good fleet of LED washers of a biggish size and a smaller size that had the ability to do pixels. And I could just have some time to sit down and play with this and kind of figure out what I have to change. But it's also different. Every fixture type is going to be different. So what you need to change is going to be different per fixture type, and how the fixture type, the profile is built.
Yes. Sometimes they are built in a very bad way, and then they don't work anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I can't count on two hands the amount of different groups I'm in where every day there's someone going, hey, has someone got this fixture type profile? I can't get any of the ones to work on GDTF for the console. Does someone have a working one? And you go, oh yeah, someone will have a working one they can pass out. So, and
I think that speaks into a kind of a big problem I think we have sometimes in the industry, is that some manufacturer will make a very good fixture, and for some reason they don't do the fixture profile correctly, and then you might have the best fixture in the world, but nobody can get it working on, for instance, an MA3 or a Camsys console or something like that. So it kind of speaks into how important it is to make a good fixture profile for the manufacturer, because otherwise a good product becomes a bad product.
Yeah, and I mean, this is probably getting a bit beyond, my knowledge, and, I haven't done much reading up into it, but, there's some part of GDTF is the problem. It's such a cool solution having this, standardized file type. But there's just so many ways that people can build a fixture type so completely different to another one of a fixture that effectively does the same job. It's pixeled, it's dimmer, it's, like all that stuff's still there. It's just on a different channel it's talking to. So, yeah, I wish manufacturers would do a better job for sure, getting out those fixture profiles, especially in GDTF. However, there's some really good resources. There's, NRG Sil, who I think his name's Sebastian. I'm sorry if I get that wrong. His website, he's got so many different fixture types with GDTF files that are actually quite good. And even like MA2 files with like really accurate 3D models and stuff if you're still on MA2. So there's things like that. There's just the fixture share itself. The amount of stuff that users have uploaded is just mind-boggling. But yeah, definitely.
In many cases, it's a question of trying 2 or 3 or 4 different fixture profiles on the GDTF share and the console, and usually you'll find one that does it for you.
You'll find one that's pretty close, and then you might need to modify a couple things. But at least if you know that the basics are working, that's good. But yeah, try use those resources, like being on. There's like I think like 8 different Discords that are involved with MA3 stuff now, and Facebook groups and Reddit and all these other things. That just even chat groups in your local area with other MA ops. If you can start one, it's just such a good resource for these files.
It is.
So selecting and doing a lot of my multi-instance stuff, I kind of work in layout views a lot of the time. And the reason I do that is because there's the real cool thing with GridStore, which is a really cool feature where you can set up a layout view, select it into your selection grid, and then store that to the fixture, and it will remember that layout view that you've created across all that fixture type, and it just speeds things up. so much. So
It makes an impossible task possible now with GridStore, I think, because rearranging everything without GridStore would be impossible. But now it is actually possible to do something about it fairly simple.
I don't think I have them anymore, but the amount of like notebooks I've had of me writing down on shows, like my pixel, like figuring out for each fixture, like what my sub instance fixture number, fixture ID is for that pixel ring, and then that pixel ring, that pixel ring, so I can then just go through and quickly type it out. Like, it's been a game changer for building these. So let's actually switch to this one because it's got my layouts view on it and got this. So you'll see that it's going to work off the bat because the fixture type I have already has this GridStore, but we're going to pretend it doesn't just for this example because it'll actually be quite a good learning. So if we grab my wash fronts, and I've grabbed the grouping fixture, and I hit down, we're now into the main instance. And you can see it if I bring up just here. You can see it on the fixture absolute. The fixture sheet here. You can see that I've got that selection. And now if I hit down again, here are my two sub instances. So we've got my beams and my auras. And so we don't actually want to talk to the beams because the beams are the main pixels that we're trying to output on. So I can, it's hard to see here, but if I zoom in, oh God, come on, behave. Yeah, there you go. So you can see here.
Both left and right mouse button, then you can move it.
I'm so used to two finger moving around on the screen now. I just, it's like, oh God.
You're handicapped with just a mouse.
Yeah, I wish I had two chat screens there, but this would be a luxury right now. That's okay. That's all good. So you can see here, 401.1 and 401.2 are my instance, my two instances for the 401 fixture, and we can see 401.1 here is the beams and 401.2. So for this process, I'm just going to grab 401.1 in my command line. So just typing that in on the programmer and grabbing that, and now I hit my down key. And you'll see on this one that actually it's kind of got the shape of a lens already, but normally it would come out in a line the first time you do this. So we're going to make it do a line, because why not make our lives a little bit harder? Actually, I was just going to go back 1 second and just check I know the order for this, because it'll be really important to get that right. Yeah, cool. So normally I do this by looking at the fixture and selecting each pixel and then figuring out the order they go in the venue, but I can't do that here. So 401 is the center, 402 is top right, and we go around. All right, cool. So we got our linear selection here, and I go into my layouts view, and oh, hello, that's something for later. This gets me every time. Store or assign? It's a sign. Every single time I store it first. Every time.
Yeah, that's because you're used to storing from MA2.
Yeah, that'll be why. So now I've got my, in my layout view here, I have my 7 pixels. And so I can hit set up at the top here, and I can now start arranging them. And we now get a grid. So, let's make this my center here, and my beam here. I'm going to go up, and let's just use these handy grid lines to do this. And like so. Yeah, where are we? It's hard not having the grid the whole time. Where are you? Come back, grid. There you are. Okay, cool. Oh. You'll spend hours clicking and dragging things that you didn't know you wanted to click and drag. It's a favorite pastime of mine. And so, so now I have this layout. Yes, it'll be a bit squished. For this example, it doesn't have to be perfect. You could go and go, it's actually going to be like that, and it's going to be like that. That would be a more correct circle. So let's do it for this one. But for me, it doesn't matter. But from here, having this in layout view, you can now select it again. And if you go back to presets, here is your selection with your pixels in the order that you've figured out for your fixture.
Yeah.
And you can go down to your command line and make sure if you've on onpc using shortcuts, make sure you turn off shortcuts for this, because it will ruin your day very quickly when you type in GridStore and you type out 9 shortcuts in quick succession. Type in GridStore and hit please, and it's now asking, do you want to store the grid positions into the fixture type? And you go, yes, please. Such a good feature. I love this. And now we go 401.
Do you have to go into the layout view and sort it out? Can you not do it in the selection grid itself?
You could do it in the selection grid. That for me is just muscle memory. And I like to have, what you'll see eventually is I like to have all my pixel stuff actually in layout views, so I can go back in later and do some selection stuff and update groups. So it's muscle memory. You could 100% do that in the selection grid. There's no reason you couldn't. It's just, for me, it's just a muscle memory, which is a big thing on consoles.
Yes.
So now I'm going to select, I can actually go through and select all of my sub instances for just the beams. And you may need to help me for this one because I often get it wrong.
I think it's 401.1 through 40. Yeah.
Is it with a dot on the 401, like 401 dot through 401, 406?
I would say it's 401.1 through 406, but I'm not sure because I always get it wrong as well.
Yeah, let's try it. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Great. So
that worked.
401, straight 401 through 406.1 will grab you all those beams fixtures. And so now we've got those beam fixtures in our selection grid. And now if I hit down, ta-da, there's our,
here we go,
our pixel layout across the grid. And then from here, I go back into my layout view, and I will actually often delete the one I worked on initially and reassign it again, and now have it in here. And this is where I do some more tweaking. So if I want, say I know I want my fixtures to have some, because they're spaced on the truss. So I know I want some spacing for my grid selection.
Yeah.
I will go in here and actually, drag them out a bit, give them some spacing. And I might do this a few times once I see it live with a rig.
And then restore your grid on the pixels.
And then restore my grid. Only my main one, not my position one, because position information does not come into these subfixtures generally at all. Okay. I can think of like that one Chauvet fixture, which has the individual tilts across the whole thing. I think that you'd have, that doesn't matter for this example. Yeah. But so I'm just going to go back in here, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm not going to go through and do that spacing. I don't want to spend time doing that for this. It's not vital for this one. So let's just grab those 6 fixtures, and we're just going to assign here and overwrite and that spacing. So we've got this. It's now in our presets. Let's just move back to the main display, so I'm looking at the screen again, because it'll be real nice. And I'm going to restore this into my wash front grid. So store there, and I'm going to make sure I overwrite it. Muscle memory hits merge every time.
Replacing whatever was in there.
Yeah, and I do the same with my linear selection. So I do this for all of these, and then I actually do the same for my odds, evens, and my thirds, because this is now breaking into some stuff where I want these effects to be applying across the specific pixel stuff, especially with how the profile is written, because that main profile is at 100. Sometimes these effects now won't actually apply always correctly because of pixel things. And this is just part of playing with instance fixtures, I find. Yeah. There's probably a better way, and at some point I will learn it, and someone will show me this thing, and my mind was, and it'll be amazing.
Maybe.
Not at the moment. So let's just do this that way. Go in here, grab my GrandMA3, and let's just store over this, because we're done with that for now. And so bouncing between, selecting my linear, going here, going my even GrandMA3, back to here, storing, overriding. Odd. You probably just hit next, and it would actually do that selection for you. It's just muscle memory again. And luckily, I only have to do this for, that's called aura back. Anyway, ignore that. That's not right. We have to do it just one more time, because we do have those back to those other 2 trusses with this. Okay. So, but it won't take long, because I can go for it should be 501 through 501 through 512.1 down. And let's do this in selection grid, eh? Let's just show doing this in selection grid. So those will be my first 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Yeah. So I'm going to move that. No, I'm going to leave it as it is, actually. Why would I move that? I want these ones. No. Getting this, like, what's front, back, up, like. So for this selection grid, because my trusses are mid-truss, this doesn't make sense, can't see the camera, but like mid-truss, then back truss. My mid-truss will actually, I want these to be in my selection grid to be lower down just because of Y-phase stuff happening. I want the Y-phase to go up, to the back. So my higher fixtures are going to sit here and my lower fixture is going to sit there. And I can just zoom in and just make sure that it's definitely going 501, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8 through 12. Cool. And come out, and we now store this to my wash mid back grid and go linear. And the process just continues on down. Let's try this if I hit next. Ta-da! There's my odds. And the last bit, I won't do it for now because I don't use loss that much, but you would have to go through and just, use those layout views to select your, however you're doing your thirds. I'm not going to worry about it in this particular instance because it shouldn't affect us. So I say now. Cool. There's only a few other groups that I need to make, and that's to do with my bump stuff now. And I kind of went through that process because I want my bumps things to happen on those specific instances. So at the moment here, you'll go here first. Here, I've got 6 bumps groups that I can put fixtures into. And so I'm going to actually do it, my spots. So both my profiles, front, mid, and back, will be in bump group 1. I actually used to my floor ones as well. Let's just merge those in there. And then let's do wash, mid, and back. Actually, I've got enough to actually do this, so I did it. Sorry, let's overwrite. Floor, you're going to be on your own little one. These ones will be group 3.
So this is completely optional, how you define whatever is in there, depending on
how you define what goes in here is depending on the rig and how you want to select stuff. And I'll show you later on, because this is just me thinking, like, quickly in a situation, am I going to want to run these bumps that I've made just across just my spots, all my spots, maybe just my top spots, and I can have bottom spots doing at a different time. I can. This is just the flexibility is entirely up to the person controlling it.
Yeah. So it's options, and eventually basically.
It's options, and there's a very good chance that I could actually just expand this to just use one of these 8 groups here, and I won't need to do any of this palaver. But for now, I like sort of cutting it down just a few smaller options, because as you'll see later on, I have a lot of options for other things that won't be needed. And then after that, I've just got my last bit of bumps. This is actually how the bumps are going to apply to the rig. And so there's going to be a little bit of jumping between 3D and let's just turn those off. Let's not be blinding. Let's just turn the highlight off for now. So we're going to do a 2D top again. Let's just make this visible. And this is just kind of selecting the rig and storing it into these 4 separate bumps groups. And once again, it's just how these bump buttons are going to apply to the rig, but at a more of an overall rig style.
So it's a matter of what you do that day.
What you're doing that day, how your rig's laid out. You may find that you don't need, like, this is all set up for like 4 separate types of bumps when you push the button. Like, you can push it 4 times and 4 separate things will happen. You may not need that many, so you might need to go in and actually edit some of these. I'll show you the main bump buttons, but you can actually go in and just delete a queue out, and then you've only got 3 running. So it's not going to have to be this way if people don't have this much of a fixture. but it could be any section you want. So for this first one, I'm just going to come in and grab just my front truss, so just a linear section across my entire front truss. And I'm going to store that into dim bump 1. And then back into here, select it out. Gonna go, I'm gonna go left to right, and then bottom to top, I'm pretty sure. Yes, that's fine. I can fix that. And we'll go into the selection grid here, and let's just zoom this out a bit. And we want to crush this down a bit. So the easy way to do that for me is just grab these fixtures here. Let's just drag them down. And we actually don't need, these are my dummy fixtures, or my hazers, which we're not going to need, so I can just get rid of those. So I've kind of just made that linear selection, or that selection across my rig, just shrunk it down, just for my sake of seeing this. And I'm going to store that into bump 2. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because I need to do some special wheels things, because this is going to select my back truss and my floor. I don't want that. So let's just clear that out real quick.
Take the 2D front view, maybe.
Can do 2D front view, but then how it's selecting, because it's actually, yeah, let's just try it. Just go to front, so 2D front, and this is hello. It's all even harder to see. I believe. Let's see what I can do here. Can I? Ooh, something's coming through. I don't know if they can see that, but I can see something.
Well, yeah, I can see something as well.
Just getting this right so it selects the correct fixtures. I'll just do it the way. So the way I often do this is every now and then I just make a few extra little worlds, it's just a simple thing of like grabbing fixtures, and I'm going to have to do it over on my these ones over here, just because I need my main instances for this. But I might get away actually. This is where bouncing between layout view and 3D can create complications. But God, we've already gone for so long. This is great. I love talking about this. Let's grab this and this, and just store. For now, I'm going to store a temporary world. Yes, it hasn't brought through those fixtures there, so that's okay. The cheaty way of doing this, well, not the cheaty, but the only other way that's doable for this is to select that row. This is how I'll do it. And we're just going to minus those other groups that we don't want. So I don't want my side light. I don't want my wash floor. I don't want that.
And then you should be left with the correct fixtures.
Should be left with the correct fixtures. One thing I will have to do is quite likely is I'll just need to do some layout, a quick little layout, because of the pixels.
Yeah.
So if I assign, let's go here, because this will have the aura, but it'll have the main instance. So you can complicate things pretty quickly for yourself, and that's just I will find there'll be a better way, and I will learn it, I'm sure. But let's just, if I hit down, because that goes through that selection. I had a genius way that I did this at WOMAD, and now I can't for the life of me remember what it was. I was so proud of myself. I was so proud of myself for figuring out. I was like, yes, this is great. And now I don't have it because I just want my back ones. So, of course I got rid of that, didn't I? If you sign overwrite. There we go. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to jump between these a bit. And let's go presets again, and let's just grab this one, go back to here. Too far. All right, sign this up here, and let's get some quick dragging stuff around going on. So all I'm doing here is I'm just going to grab, I know this is my back row, and I know my spacing from memory should be Aura, Viper, Aura, Viper. My favorite thing to do is click and drag those little tabs,
and it always
and
happens.
next thing you know, you've
Grab too
now
much
got your
stuff.
rig, yeah, doing wonderful things. I would normally be doing this a little bit faster because I'm using the encoder wheels. But we don't have those here, which is all good. Create a space there. And once again, this sort of stuff's not going to matter for the selection grid in terms of the spacing between it too much, because we are trying to do quite a I have to go back and fix this one, but it's okay. So this does take time, and if you can do this ahead of time, spend some time at home on onpc or in the shop ahead of time, it will massively speed up your time at festival or on site.
And
but
sometimes you will get the show files first. Sometimes, especially in Denmark anyway, we will get the MVR files more and more than we used to. So that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming more common here. A lot of the shows I do, the level I'm at, I'm not really doing the MVR very much, and that's fine. That's just where I'm at right now. But it'll come, I'm sure. So this is just going to help with that selection. And what I'm going to do now is we have to go back and just update a previous group we made in the presets. And we're also going to want to add in to this selection the side light. So let's just bring this. Having the selection thing pop up here has been also another amazing game changer for me.
I find myself using these ones, the selection grid phase and matrix all the time, the shortcuts down there.
Yeah, I often forget they're there, and then when I remember, I'm just like, oh, that's right, hallelujah. I'm so glad it's here. Because I'll spend, the first minus 17 through 2. So this is just remaking that selection for my bump group because of how I want it to apply across my fixtures. If you've got instance fixtures, you wouldn't have to go this in depth. You could literally just go and grab that 3D top-down selection and be done with it. It's just because I'm being particular about this. And I'm just going to double check in 3D that it's the selection I think it is. It is. It's across there and across there. So that's my second bumps group. So I'm going to go into here, and we're just going to overwrite this selection now. And we have to do a similar thing that I just did to my next one. But there's a cool way you can do this, which can kind of make your life a little bit easier, because you clear out your selection, you make a new selection of your next lot of fixtures, and you actually go, you know what, I want to add my side light in, which is going to bring in those extra fixtures I definitely don't want. Go to here, and I'm just going to minus everything from that last bump group, and now I've got rid of those selection of those extra side lights that I didn't actually want to have selected. And I can go this is where let's just set up, let's just minus 4. Look here, Add it back in. Now I can go set up. I can imagine all the people right now screaming, going, "There's a better way! There's a better way!" And I'd love to hear it. I can't wait, because it'll make my life so much easier.
That's why we have a comment section below the videos. Then they can just add a comment down there.
Why are you doing this? I was like, oh, well, okay. No, fair point.
We can't know everything.
No, and if I did, I would forget everything else. So,
yeah.
Rightio. So we're getting there. It's a process. We might be able to do your selection idea for the floor stuff though from 3D. So let's try this to make our life a bit easier. So if we go this one here. So we go 2D front, and we can barely see them. They're there somewhere. Let's just, there we go. Clear that out, and we do left to right, top to bottom for this. This is where so this is a good thing. Some GTF fixture profiles are not built the same. Somewhere in here, little pixels. You just would have seen them when I did the selection. Just there. There's little pixels that are currently extended 6 meters away from the actual fixture, and they're now part of my selection. And that's just,
that's really weird. That part there.
Yeah, it's because it's grabbing it there. It's there. I can see them all floating. Just So there you go. Still happening. I give up. Layout views. Here we go. My favorite. Bring on the MA2 ways.
Yeah.
Layout view is my favorite. All right. Set up. Here's my 5 floor washers, and they're interspersed between there. Ta-da! I have my bump selection. It's going to get a lot more complicated, because there's things that's going to have to happen. Like I do my bumps, row by row, but I also do them column by column and left by right. I won't make those. This is going to extend it out to like a 4-hour video. So, which if you want, I'm here for it. It'd be great, but it's a very long video, and I don't think people.
No, I think it's more like being able to follow the principles you use. And kind of get an understanding of how everything, because now making groups and all this stuff, now understanding after this how stuff works in reality.
Yeah, and there's things you need to spend time on, and the goal of a template file is you might need to spend more time on your group stuff, but then theoretically, once you see the rest of the file, you're not having to do much other stuff. It's just a preset updates, and you're kind of on your go. So, what I would normally do is I'd probably actually end up doing, and I do have a group for it in here, as I do an overall top-down selection, and because I have instance fixtures in here, I would quite likely, we can go into presets, and I'll bring up the big one. I would actually take this and I would assign it into a layout, and then I'll go through and kind of move things around and put my my actual pixel groups in the kind of correct location, and then reselect this and have all that information. Because for me, there's some effects, my effects are set up to be versatile. You don't have to do this, and I'll show that in the next little step. But it's, if you do it this way, you can actually have sometimes when you're running effects, they can be more inclusive of the whole rig rather than being separate to each of the individual grid groups by having an overall grid fixture. But let's just store that for now, because it'll get the majority of it, and then the rest will figure itself out. But I'd take this, store it to layout, merge my layout with my individual pixels, and move some stuff around, and then I could go through and actually do I won't do it, but I could go through and go, okay, this is going to be that's my first quarter of my rig, and then here's my second quarter. Here's my third quarter, and that's what I'll be storing into this bump 1. So the vertical, that's my vertical line, bump 1, bump 2, bump 3, bump 4. And same again for like left and right. I would be going in and going, okay, here's my left, here's the left of my rig. And I will actually store this one because it'll be mostly right. We'll miss a few things, but that's fine. And then I do hit, let's not move the window around. Let's grab my right of the rig, minus that fixture because he's already in the other one. Cool. So that's groups. There's a lot to it for this particular file, and you don't have to set the bumps up if you don't think you're going to use bumps. You don't have to worry about that. Like the base bumps that I'll show you that are in there don't need any of this stuff. This is just an extra layer I've built on top to give me versatility. So from here, the last little step would be get some positions and update some gobos and focuses, which we can't really do focuses with 3D. You just won't see it, but we can just add a couple gobos and do a couple positions. So Start Show content update, back in here. We've done our create basic groups, and now I'm going to use the position wizard I've written. You could go through and make the positions all by hand. This is based on the position wizard that comes with the MA Start Show, but I've modified it. And what it does is use a little bit of alert at the start, which you'll see, but it actually asks you for some user input, so you can set some variables and some limits for things, and then it will go through and make your straights, your fan in, your cross, and in a few different positions. But you can't run this until you've made your groups, because if you don't have your groups made, it won't know what it's referencing.
No.
So run this, and it's going to go, hey, you sure want to overwrite positions? Because the first time it runs through, it goes through and store overwrites the presets. And then the rest of them will store merge. Because I found that if I don't overwrite, sometimes some values get held from some of the fixtures in my deep storage, and it goes awry. So here it's asking for my max pan. And so for this particular one, I want it to be 40. So it's in the natural readout, I'm pretty sure. So 40 either side of center. So I can type in 40. Hit please. And
so
it's
it
going,
will
okay,
do
what
a
do you want?
plus and a minus.
It figures it out for you. I can go through and actually show the macro what it's doing. After we've done this, so it can kind of explain what each of these are doing. So the high tilt is here you set your, kind of what you want your highest tilt to be. And it's probably sometimes a good idea ahead of time, actually on the venue, you might need to rerun this because you might go there and find that actually you've set it to 90, but 90 is blinding the entirety of the balcony section and half the half the circle. So 100 is actually slightly better because it's going to be shooting above the balcony, and we've all been guilty of doing that. So, I've had a number of audience members come and go, "You're blinding us." I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me just, fix it." So it's a good thing. But for here, we're going to set it to, let's go 95. Let's give the gods a little bit of a break. And then my mid tilt. So I'm going to say for this one, I've done 95. I kind of want it to probably be about 40 degree, 40 angle. And my low is going to be, let's go 15. And now it's going through and at a great rate, going through all the fixture groups, grabbing all the things it needs, and it's applying values to it.
So it's doing that based on the values, the max and the minimum values you gave it, storing that into variables and reusing it in the
reusing
macro.
it. Yeah.
Very nice.
And it's all based off these position selections, these position groups here. And that's why I made sure that I did my first initial build, got all that stuff in there and copied it across here at the same time, because this will hold all the pan tilt information for those auras in that main instance. And so it's referencing off here.
Okay.
With a combination of strict and normal, you could make it work without doing this, but I found that sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes there's just things that just don't seem to line up nicely between strict and normal, and kind of getting that balance right can take time.
Yeah.
But if we go through here, let's have the 3D up. Let's bring some intensities up so we can see things outputting, and we should maybe make the 3D go to the front view so it looks a little bit better. So the 3D is up there. We can go across our Viper profiles, for example. We can go through and it's made my low straight, it's made my mid straight, high straight, and my fan in. And so it's kind of gone through
halfway
and made
there in terms of doing your positions.
Yeah, and like there's some really cool plugins that a few people have put on the forums that you can find, where they've done some like random position makers that do some. I don't have any of those in this file. I'm trying to be careful when I upload and make sure any plugins I have I remove because I don't want to step on anyone's toes. But there are some really cool plugins you can get, and there's actually a couple of free ones that do some random position makes, which you could actually use and then store into the custom positions as well, which would also speed that time up. So that's done that for me, and it's gone across my fixtures. So theoretically, if all's gone to plan, which is always, hopefully it's all gone to plan. If we come here and grab these ones, low, mid, straight, so it's got all that information across those instance fixtures now as well. Sometimes this happens, and there's a little thing. I'm not saying I'm not perfect. There's something happening in one of the macro, and we might find it today actually, where it's actually it hasn't stored the X information correctly across these fixtures, but I find it only happens a couple times, and I often it's not that hard for me to kind of just go in using GrandMA3, doing a grid selection of those fixtures. So coming in here, wrong one, coming in here. Set it to the low cross, and then using GrandMA3. I'm going to get this wrong the first time. X of 2, I think. And then position. No. See, I always get this wrong. I'm trying to basically cut it into odds and evens, actually, just to do it that way. Let's just redo that. That one. Down here. Back down. You can actually do it with the matrix here, I suppose, as well. But I quite like just using the pool view.
Yeah.
Why is this not? Why is it making me? I'm forgetting something. I'll blame the 12 o'clock at night on that one. That was my choice, so I wouldn't blame myself. Yeah. There we go. So here we go. So go to low cross, and that's actually correct. So if I grab the other selection, go low cross, and I just need to change this to 40, and now I can store that there. And what you can actually do to cheat this is you can off the tilt value. I need to go. Let's see what the step one is. We'll just reselect these. So theoretically, that's done that. Now, if I off the tilt value and store this as just a temporary preset, go here, click that. I've now got my mid cross.
Yeah. As long as you are in single link value, single, and not feature.
Yeah. If you yes. I think by offing that though, you can force it from memory.
If you're in feature,
because
I'm not sure you could off it because it would need to record both, I guess. I'm not sure.
I'll say because basically I'm offing that, so I've only got the pan information, storing that there. Yeah. So if I bring this up, it's only got pan, even though I was in feature when I did it.
In feature, yeah, because you actively turn something off then.
Yeah, and then we can check it here by going So I mean, actively turning it off is why that's worked. Yes. So if you're in single, then you might not use off something. That's just an MA2 habit that's come through from me as well.
Of course.
So let's have a quick look at that plugin just so people can see what it's doing. So pops up a little thing at the start saying, are you sure you want to overwrite positions? And if they go, yes, great, we go on to the next step. If they say anything else, it clears the macro.
Okay.
And you could choose to put up a question asking what you want the base pan to be, which is like the middle, but you shouldn't need to ever change it. So I just force it to 0 just for the math to work. And so the next step down is asking the question. So if we go, test macro line, please enter that max pan. And then it's then automatically going for the min pan, it's taking the max pan variable and
putting a
the
minus in
pan
front of it.
base, putting a minus in front of it, and now we have our minus value.
Yeah.
And then you have your high tilt, once again, putting a minus value. So for me, I always work, and this may confuse some people, and they are welcome to come in and change this. But for me, how my brain works is my minus is always towards me, and then my minus is always left. So that's if I'm looking at the stage. But I know some people have the other way. They want their positive to be out towards them, but their minus to be left. So you could come in here and change this, and that's totally fine. I said this is my show file. I've built it. What works for my brain. So yes, that's just minusing those three values.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and it's it's the way people learn. And if they like the macro, they can rewrite it, and it'll be wonderful. So yeah, so you get those next things. Does a few more variables. It kind of grabs the first lot of, and this is why it didn't work. I figured out now because group 1 even and odd is not didn't contain those main fixtures for the auras. That's why the X didn't work. So I would probably suggest maybe once you do your first run of group building, run this macro, then go back and do your specific instancing stuff for those main start show groups that we did with all those layout views. So yeah, make sure it grabs the first group 1 for the 4 things it needs. Selects that group just using the variable name, so it's pulling it into the programmer and starts applying. So attribute pan at the min, absolute tilt at the low tilt. So we have our 0 and our low tilt, stores it, low straight, overwrite. It works through the questions asked and just builds out those presets for you. And I'm not making it clear. You could go through and make it clear all after each of these. I haven't. It's because we're storing it. It's remove those values from the programmer. The next time you do a new thing, it's bringing new values in. So, and yeah, it's just it goes through and builds 3, 6, 12, 13 presets for you. And I am still learning the ways of using Lua to do like incremental counting. So theoretically, you could actually make the whole thing stop around here and do some math and figure out if it's on group 1, it needs to now go to group 2, start again. Oh, we're at group 3, we haven't yet met the 8. But for me, I just have it doing each of the groups. It's just a whole lot of lines of macro.
There's always simpler ways to do it, but sometimes
there's
just
smarter
doing
ways.
it the way you know how is a good idea.
Yeah, and this is fast, like, because all I did is I did the first one, copied that section, pasted it down, changed those four group handles to the correct group number, copy, paste, change. And so once I did it once, it was just copy pasting to get it all through the whole way out. So so that's that macro. And so once you've done that, like you can go through and do a few other things. You could do zooms and gobos if your fixtures need them. But if you've just got a wash rig, you might just need zoom. But I've actually got zoom on the universal fixture. So for most lights, it will actually the zoom will work across most fixtures, and you might just need to update a few things here and there where you have more zoom than the universal fixture had. So this one has a few more degrees. But let's just quickly put 2 gobos in so I can show you the gobo process for Vipers. So you don't need to have all of them. You can just, because they're going to be global, so you can just grab the first one. And my process is make sure I go to gobo rotate, store my open first. So grab any opens you need. If your fixture has an animation wheel, I'm not going to use the one on the Viper, but if it had an animation wheel, I'd also store it into this open. So grab those, store in there. Just make sure habit is just off those anything in there, even though I know it's all gone. I just like to off it to make sure there's nothing going to be there. And we're going to go into Gobo Wheel 1 rotation and pick a Gobo we like. So I like Bite Me, as it's called, from memory, from Vipers, and store that into. It's pulled some information here. So before I store it, I'm just going to off anything there because I don't want any of that to be put into this Gobo. I want it to just be the Gobo.
Of course.
And let's just off that one again. I'm going to do the same for Gobo 2. Let's pick my favorite one is the circles. Got to have those circles. I'm going to store that into Gobo Wheel 2, slot 1. And then the next thing to do is, with that off, is you need to have your Gobo rotation if you want to use it. So going into both of these, I often go here, grab that to that, make sure I've offed the Gobo. Depending on how the profile is built, it will sometimes automatically pull Gobo information into the fixture and then store it for you. And I don't want that, so I have to make sure I'm very particular with some fixtures. And other fixtures, it's not an issue. So that's
I think that's one of the places in MA3 that has been it has changed a bit, and you have to think a lot more about it than you did on MA2, storing Gobos and Gobo rotation, because it's trying to help you, but it's not really helpful every time.
Yeah, and there's probably a setting somewhere that will, stop that.
Stop that helpfulness.
But it's, it's fine. And so, it's just part of the process for me is going in here. I set it to the clockwise medium. I'm going to set this on the clockwise medium. I'm going to make sure I off the Gobos for it. And I'm going to store that to my rotate right. And then go counterclockwise medium, off that. And this is all stuff that came with the MA Start Show file. So most of this is nothing different than what you'd have to do with the MA Start Show file, minus me adding the animation wheel as an option. But now if we go through and grab these fixtures, they'll all have because it's a global, it has the global information, all that for all the Vipers.
Yeah.
Last one is you would have to go and do focus and beam if you need shutter. I don't always do shutters. I don't always do prism. It depends on the show. So, but that has not changed across the MA Start Show file. You would just store your shutter open, your strobe, your random on your fixture shutter, and your prism information, and then in the loss engine you can then do things with it. But if you go into focus, this is where my file differs a little bit because of how I interact in a busking environment. I separate out my zoom and my focus into separate presets. And that's just it's still with my layout view for my Gobos and how I interact with it. Has necessitated doing this. So I would normally go through, and it's not going to make much sense here because we can't see it. But I go to my Start Show view, and for my profiles, I'd set them to narrow first, which they're not going to show up until I bring them up, are they? There we go. Let's turn those off. Go into narrow first, into my presets, and another good thing to do is just to be sure that it's got it is set it to the opens. That's the open Gobo, like the open Gobo wheel for me. And then I go in and I'll be like, okay, my focus needs to be, let's say it needs to be at 27. That's my open narrow in focus, and I store to open small. And then I go back to my Start Show. This will be on my second screen for me. I made it go to my mid zoom, and I have to go take my focus again. So luckily with Vipers, often it's not very much. It's only a couple of degrees with the optics, and now it's my mid. And once again, let's go back down. That'll be my open wide. And then back into here, and now I'm going to select my first Gobo. So select Gobo, and then I'm triggering it to change into it, which has happened on the 3D. And Gobo 1 small, Gobo 1 mid, Gobo 1 wide. So I'm in wide already, so I'm going to sort of, find my new focus for my wide and store it there. So luckily on this rig, the only fixtures that have Gobos are my Vipers. So once again, I'm only doing this all on one fixture type.
Yeah. Ooh, actually. But it could be multiple fixture types.
No, I've just noticed something, and this will catch you out. it's storing them selective, so this will not be across all my fixtures.
Oh, that is because your focus is set to selective.
Focus
Your
it's
preset.
it's set to selective because
Yeah.
not every fixture focus is the same. And if it was global,
Nope.
you could change it, and then you could force store it as selective if you needed to.
Yeah.
So I backtrack a tiny bit. You would need to grab the entire rig and kind of get it close, and then maybe go through and tweak a few things and store it. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it here because we can't see focus. Just storing the last focus for the mid. So just making sure this is in the mid zoom, and we're now just making a small alteration to focus, and you do this across all your fixtures, and storing to G1 mid. And we will have to do this one more time just because we do have Gobo Wheel 2 selected. And so we're just going to start at where we're at. So we're on the mid one. Just going to tweak that zoom, Gobo Wheel 2 mid. So there's always going to be things you have to update. Nothing can ever be done completely for you.
No.
Although if you're in a venue which the rig doesn't change, then yeah, you do it once and your file, theoretically is going to always be there always be there.
Yeah, and if you are really good at storing your fixtures or keeping your fixtures in your patch, and whenever you come
Yeah,
across the same fixture, you wouldn't have to do all this stuff.
you wouldn't have to do this. So yeah, all this focus information, I went through and cleared it all out. Like going
Yeah.
forward, a lot of this would all still be here for me. I might probably, my habit would probably be to still clear all the Gobos because the Gobo images would be based off whatever the first of a fixture type that's stored a Gobo into that preset. That would be the one that's used then on out.
Yeah.
So I would probably clear those out and start fresh each time. But yeah, for the focus and even the beam stuff like your shutters and your prisms, that can theoretically all stay. It won't need to change. And then the only other one I'll do here, just because we do have it, is the iris narrow. And so yeah, there is a focus preset for iris. Well, if you want to have if you have a real punchy fixture that can get a nice small iris on it, whatever reason, you can achieve that. That would be it for now. You'll eventually end up playing with color stuff just to get matching across fixtures, but
So this concludes part 1 of the video file here with Michael Green. Remember, you can download the file in the description below. There's a link to a GitHub account where you can get in and get your own copy of this file. So if you want to test it out and maybe use it for reference or maybe use it for inspiration, you can do so. Tomorrow we're going to look at part 2 of this video where he tries to use the file and will show you how, after all the setup is done, how you actually use the file. How can you actually do a show with it? How can you use all the macros in the layout views and all this stuff? That is tomorrow. Remember to give this video a like if you enjoy this type of content, and also subscribe to Event Lighting if you want to get a notification every time we upload a new video. Click the little bell, and that way that should be sorted. I hope I will see you again tomorrow for part 2 of Michael Green's show file. See you then. Bye bye.